Okay, the purpose of this video is to show you the process from start to finish in SpeechCAT for creating a job. So the first thing that we're going to do is click on the New Job button. When the New Job screen appears, you need to type in a title. You can type in a note if you like. You need to select your style that you want to use for this job. And then you want to fill in whatever fields you can. The way that you type them in here is the way that they're going to appear. So if you want it to be in all caps, you should type it in all caps. And you don't absolutely have to fill out everything here. There are some things that you can't fill out in advance, but you can fill out whatever you need to fill out. And then you can simply click on real time. The real-time screen loads first. The drag and open user profile dialog comes up, and you need to click on the appropriate user for the job and click on open. You're going to notice at the bottom of the screen it's saying opening speech engine, please wait. You should see your recording screen on the left-hand side. When it says topic ready, you're okay to go ahead and start the job. Rise.
You may be seated.
You may be seated.
Your Honor, I am the attorney for the state. This case is the state versus the defendant, Robert Peterson. The defendant is charged with reckless driving which caused property damage to a parked car. On September 25th, while he was driving a car, the defendant swerved into a parked car. When the defendant drove and hit the parked car, the accident was witnessed. The parked car is owned by Bill Mitchell. Despite hitting the parked car, the defendant did not stop the car but left the scene. Police investigated the accident and found out that the driver was the defendant, Robert Peterson. The police later arrested the defendant. The defendant cooperated with the police. At this time, we ask the court to find the defendant guilty of reckless driving and leaving the scene of an accident. For punishment, we ask the court to order that he pay a fine of $5,000. Mr. Robert Peterson, defendant, to the two charges of reckless driving and leaving the scene of an accident, how do you plead?
How do you plead? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty or not guilty?
Your Honor, my name is Susan Stone. I represent the defendant, Robert Peterson. Mr. Peterson pleads guilty for both charges.
Let the record show that defendant Robert Peterson has made pleas of guilty on both charges, reckless driving and leaving the scene of an accident. Now, Mr. Peterson, has your lawyer advised you of your rights? Yes. Do you understand your rights? Yes. Have you and your lawyer discussed your rights and options? Yes. Is there anything that you would like to state for the record, Mr. Peterson?
Your Honor, I would like to ask for leniency in sentencing of Mr. Peterson for a few reasons that I would like to present.
Does the prosecutor have any objections? The state has no objections, Your Honor. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. My client, Robert Peterson, was unaware at the time that he had hit a parked car while he was driving his car. The reason he did not know this was because a child was playing with a ball, and the ball bounced into the street, and this distracted him. Mr. Peterson knew this was a neighborhood with many families and children, so he was driving slowly. When Mr. Peterson was distracted and driving slowly, his car hit Mr. Mitchell's parked car. But Mr. Peterson did not feel any impact. Mr. Peterson is deaf and did not hear the impact. Because he did not realize there was an accident, he drove home. When he arrived home, he started unloading groceries from the rear of the car and did not notice the damage to the side of his car. He first found out about the damage in an accident when the police arrived at his house and told him. I would like to also inform the court that Mr. Peterson has always been a very careful driver. He has been driving for more than 50 years, and in that time has not had any tickets, no speeding ticket or any other kind of ticket. For these reasons, I feel the court should be lenient. Mr. Peterson has valid insurance coverage, and his coverage will resolve all damages to Mr. Mitchell's car. What you just saw was an example of a criminal case.
Now, what you're looking at is my dictated text with conflicts on. What a conflict is every time that I get something incorrect on a regular basis, I can add a conflict that allows me to listen to the text in the scope phase and make a decision as to which conflict is correct. Now, it doesn't mean that every conflict is in the right place or is there for the right reason or is even correct. But that is something that we're going to cover as we move into scope. At the end of the job, all you really have to do is close out. SpeechCAT saves for you every 30 seconds unless you've saved the default. And so all of your audio has been recorded in the Digitrans screen and your text has been laid down in the real-time screen. Should you need to give a readback, you would hit F8, and every time you hit F8, it goes back one speaker. To listen to that speaker at that place, you would stop and hit F5. Listen, and then repeat it back. That's the way a readback is done.
Your Honor, I would like to ask for leniency in sentencing Mr. P.
You can pause when you're done listening. And when you're ready to leave the job, we're simply going to click on the X in the upper right-hand corner. You can choose to save your voice data. I always do because that's how I do correction. We're brought back then to the main menu of SpeechCAT. In order to move on, we click on the Scope button, which is the white dog-eared page with the yellow right-facing arrow. When you click on the Scope button, you should see a message that says should Scope load the speech engine. If you want to do correction, you would make sure that there is a check in that box and click on OK. Again, you want to open the user profile. Allow it to load. You'll see loading the voice data at the bottom. Okay, so now that the voice data is loaded, we can begin with our corrections. So I just usually leave my cursor on the first word and I turn correction mode on.
All right.
If I did not understand, I can do Alt-P.
All right.
And what I said was all rise. I'm going to hit page down to move to the next utterance.
All right. You may be seated. Speak to Your Honor. I am the attorney for the state. This case is the state versus the defendant, Robert Peterson. Speak to Your Honor. I am the attorney for the state. This case is the state versus the defendant, Robert Peterson. Speak to Your Honor. I am the attorney for the state. This case is the state versus the defendant, Robert Peterson.
Page down to the next utterance.
Here goes.
That was Pirco, which is my period. Page down.
The defendant is charged with reckless driving, which caused property damage to a car. In fact, on September 25th, when he was driving a car, the defendant swerved into a parked car. In fact, on September 25th,
Again, I said Pirco. I can't really understand what that is. So what I'm going to do is toggle the correction off because I could not completely correct the entire utterance, and I'll move on to the next utterance. So because, again, I can't understand everything I said, I have to toggle it to red so that I cannot push it to dragon. This time we asked the court to find the defendant guilty of reckless driving and at this time we asked the court to find the defendant guilty of reckless driving and leaving the scene of an accident. Jacob, for punishment, we asked that the court to order that he be paid a fine of $5,000 Jacob. Speed 1. Mr. Robert Peterson committed an encounter to the two charges of reckless driving and leaving the scene of the accident. How do you plead? Guilty or not guilty? Speak to Your Honor. My name is Susan Stone, Pico. I represent the defendant, Robert Peterson, Pico. Mr. Peterson, pleads guilty for both charges, Pico. Now, once you've done as much correction as you plan to do, you can turn correction off, and then you would move to the utterance summary. In the utterance summary, what we're doing is we're actually verifying that the corrections we've made are correct. This little black arrow tells you what you're going to be listening to when you hit play. I'm going to hit play. All rise. All rise. That's correct. So I'm going to leave the check. Next. Speak to Your Honor. I am the attorney for the state. This case is the state versus the defendant, Robert Peterson. That's correct. That's correct. Investigated the accident and found out that the driver was the defendant, Robert Peterson. That's correct. The defendant cooperated with the police. That's correct. At this time, we ask the court to find the defendant guilty of reckless driving and leaving the scene of an accident. For punishment, Okay, so they're all correct, so I'm going to click on correct. And you'll see at the bottom it says corrections are being applied. Please wait or select cancel. So I'm just going to be patient here as Dragon absorbs these changes. As you can see, the corrected text is currently green. Once it's saved to Dragon, it's going to turn blue, which means that the corrections have been applied to Dragon. Now it'll tell you that the speech files have been modified. Would you like to save the speech files? You want to click on yes. Now, during the correction phase, we are not allowed to add anything that we did not say. So we can't add punctuation, we can't initial cap things, and so we need to go back and do that. So here there might be a space between the period there, and then we need a cap here, so Control I will initial cap that. We have double periods here, so I'm going to back over one, go back up to the top and see what changes I need to make there. So right here, I believe it was the bailiff that would have been saying all rise. So let's see if we have a bailiff here. We don't, so I'm going to add the bailiff here as speaker 20. And notice that the field is pink. Once I hit enter, then it turns its regular color, and that means that it's saved. So now if I put my cursor up at the top, and this is speaker 20, so if I do Alt R for reformat, I go down to speaker macro and I type in 20. There we have the bailiff saying all rise. And I said all rise a second time just because it did not come out. So I'm going to use Control D. Oh, looks like a... Now if I enter a control period here, that's going to put a period, 2 spaces, and cap the next. I still need a period here. And then I would probably use a comma here. I'm the attorney for the state. This case is the state versus defendant Robert Peterson. Bring the period up and Control I to initial cap. The defendant is charged with reckless driving which caused property damage to a parked car on September 25th. Now, here I couldn't figure out what I said, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the room, which is, for me, room 1 and room 2 are my room mics. And I'm going to right click just right here.
When the defendant drove and hit the parked car, the accident was witnessed. The parked car is owned by Bill Mitchell. Robert Peterson. The defendant is charged with reckless driving which caused property damage to a parked car. On September 25th, while he was driving a car, the defendant swerved into a parked car. When the defendant drove and hit the parked car, the accident was witnessed. The parked car is owned by Bill Mitchell.
Okay, so once you're done making the changes that you need to make, it's time to insert the cover and certificate pages. So that is what we call finalize. So we click on Job and Finalize. This screen shows up, basically giving us the option to change the default include files. I don't need to do that, so I'm going to click on OK. And what it's telling me here is that I have not entered speaker information for all of these people, so their information on the appearance page will be missing. That's okay. We'll click on All Right. And here's my document with the changes, and you can see that there's still a few things that will need to be corrected or adjusted a little bit. There's the stipulation. Now, if we want to go ahead and create indexes for this case, what you'll see is that the general index is list 1, the examinations are list 2, objections are list 3, exhibits are 4, and then you see the proceedings. The way that we add in anything to the index is we highlight it and then we add it to the list we want to add. So we click on index and I can add it to, let's say that this was an exhibit of a parked car, say a picture of a parked car. So we can go in at any point and show 4 is our exhibit. So I'm going to go to that page. If I bring it up by going to index page 1, then I just hit the number 4, you'll see parked car. That's what I added, and it's on page number 3. I might want to add in here photograph of parked car. Click on apply and OK, and you've made a change to the exhibit that you've entered. Once you've entered all of your exhibits throughout the document, then you can go to the place where your index is, and you can say index, create indexes, and it's going to say, are you sure? You say yes, and it's going to go ahead and merge the changes that you've made and give you what your index actually is going to look like. As you can see, the only thing entered here was the photograph of the parked car. And you may have to still use your tab key and move it over to where it's supposed to be, but then you should be done once you've got them all lined up. Then it's time to go to present. Now, notice that this text is larger than what I normally use because I like to see it larger. So I can go up here to next display set, and what that's likely going to do is go ahead and change my font to the font that it's supposed to be. And here's my certificate page, and put in the reporter's name and their license number, and you're ready to, and then we didn't put in a certificate page, so you can always fill this in. This is the 26th day of February. (2018). And so now we've got everything filled in. We're ready to move to the word processor. So I'm going to click on save, I'm going to click on job, and I'm going to go to present. And that's going to take us directly to the word processor of our choice, and it's going to bring up this dialog that says present this job, question mark. And what this means is that if you have the check in this dialog box, it's going to bring up what we call the media controller so that you can still listen to the job again if you'd like to. So I'm going to let that happen so that you can see what that looks like. And so for this specific style, I have it set up to use Microsoft Word. So it drops my transcript right into Microsoft Word. And there might be a few things, like for stipulation, I probably want to tab that over a little. I might want the defendant's name bolded. And then you just go through the transcript and make sure that everything looks the way it's supposed to look for you. I'm going to make that go over a little bit. And if my proceedings are not lining up with the line numbers, I can always highlight Shift Control End. That's going to highlight all the way to the end, and then if I just hold the Shift key down and up arrow so that I can arrow up beyond the proceedings, beyond the certificates, so that I'm at the proceedings, make sure that I have all the proceedings selected all the way through the end, and then I can go to paragraph and I might want to do strictly double. Let's see how that works. And that lines it up perfectly. And so I'm good to go. I just need to make sure that everything is good on these pages. And for instance here, I don't like this to roll over. So what I might do is I might decide to change the spacing here so that I can fit a little bit more of it on the page. And it looks a little better, gives a little bit more room. There we go. And then if you make sure that from your home screen you turn on Show Hide, you're going to see where all of your page breaks are so that you can make sure that they're in the right place. Some things you want to be single spaced. You can highlight and go to Format and just do single there. You can push it down if need be. This is the errata. If there's anything at all that you don't want or don't need, you can always remove it. If you don't need an errata sheet, you can certainly remove it. And when you're satisfied with the way the transcript is looking, you literally just hit save. And then we can close out. And let's say that we wanted to create an ASCII for the job, we would go to, make sure the job's highlighted, go to File, Generate ASCII, and the ASCII source for me should be the present file. And I do have fake line numbering on some pages, and so normally the first 2 pages we have some single spaced items, so we want to do that. And then the last pages are double spaced, so I don't need to put single space items in there. I do want friendly line and page numbering with page breaks, and normally it's going to take whatever you called the job and use that as the file name, which is fine with me. I'm going to click on Create. You can see it says Beginning Document Preparation. This is not a long document, so it won't take long. The status is always down here in the bottom of the screen. And then you can see Finished Writing ASCII Text File. And if you click on that very first icon here, you can actually view your ASCII file. And that's what you would send to your agency usually. So you're done. You can cancel this. Normally I like to acquire that ASCII to the job, so I'm going to click on Import and Acquire Files for Job. I'm going to go to the ASCII files and click down here on All Files, and there's the State versus Brown, so I click on Open, and now that ASCII file is a part of my job record, which you can see by going to View and Include View and Show Files. And you can see that here's my ASCII file right here. And I've still got my dictation files, my sound files, and my presented document. So you're good to go. After you print it and certify it and turn it in, the job is completed and you can move the job to history. Wants me to reselect it, I suppose. And you want to say yes. And then if you click on history, you will see that your job has been moved to the history list. And you are done. Hope you enjoyed that.